Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to take a good, close look at this. Look at the quality on this grind. Look at the color, the distribution of fat in the meat, the size of the grind, everything. This is custom ground meat. I do my own grinding. I do this because, well, too many times I went to the store and I got ground meat and I also got real disappointed. Open it up, it smells bad, it looks bad, it looked pretty on the outside, and you know, the meat itself. But when you break into it, it's not what it should be. I think you've encountered that. I don't like that. I want my meat to smell fresh, and I know what fresh beef smells like. It should smell fresh. Same way with chicken or pork. You can grind any meat you want. Today I'm just going to show you the basics about grinding meat, and that's it. And then you'll be off and running, making your own delicious ground meat. By the way, if you say it takes too long, the total grinding time on this was 2 minutes and 22 seconds. From when I first started shoving meat into the grinder to when it finally ended and I turned it off. 2:22. That was it. Let's take a look at our grinders and we're going to get busy grinding up some meat. Before we get busy doing our grind, let's talk about the equipment for a minute. There's a lot of different kinds of meat grinders. I'm only showing 2 different types here, but I wanted to give you kind of a good cross section between old and basic, which is, by the way, this is still manufactured. They make lots of these things and they're inexpensive. You can get grinders like this from $20 to $30, so they don't cost very much. You can get electric grinders for as low as $50 that I've seen, and I'm sure there's some that are probably a little less than that. I'm using one that's an attachment to my mixer, and it works just like the electric ones of any type. Now, so you'll know, all of these grinders all work the same way, and they all work the same way as the ones in the stores. The ones that they grind up meat commercially with operate on the exact same principle that these do, they're just bigger. When you're deciding what kind of grinder you want, you're going to have to make some choices. Do I want to have to crank this by hand, or do I want to plug it in? So you'll know all grinders come apart. This thumb screw comes off and the whole thing comes apart. This thumb screw back here comes off. The handle comes off. The auger comes out of the inside. You can see down in there, there's the auger. Okay, now that auger grabs the meat and just pulls it in and pushes it right up to the die, forces it through there, and it gets cut, and that's where you get your ground beef. Very simple. Or ground meat, or ground food, whatever you want to say. This one works the same way. Let's take this apart. You have this retaining ring that works the same way that the thumb screw works on the auger type. On the inside you have your die. We push this out. The die sits in front of a cutter. Now this uses a separate metal cutter, where this is just built into the housing and into the die design. So this has an extra part on it, but it works the exact same way that this does. And of course the auger, let's pull that on out, the auger that forces the food through the die. These all have a fairly small aperture for putting the meat through, so you're going to have to cut your meat to fit in this. Not too difficult, but that allows it to be small enough for the auger to grab and force it through the die. That's all there is to it. Cleaning these, you've seen how it comes apart. There's not a lot to it. It's very simple and easy to clean. And I generally I can have this thing washed up inside of about 1.5 to 2 minutes easily and be very thorough about it. Okay, there we have it. There's something that needs to be mentioned when it comes to how tight do you get this screw? How tight do you get this collar right here? Well, if you're getting meat on this type coming out between this plastic edge and the die itself, then it's not tight enough. The meat should only come through the small holes. When it's coming through those holes, this is tightened down enough, all right? That's how you know how tight to set it. So from there, we just got to cut up some meat and feed it into the machine so we have some beautiful home ground beef. I am going to be grinding chuck. Now I'm going to be cutting these pieces so that they will fit down into my grinder. You can actually grind any kind of meat you want. It can be chicken, it can be pork, it can be beef, it can be rattlesnake, it can be whatever you desire, okay? Also, you can grind whichever cut you want. If anybody tells you, oh, you can't grind a steak, sure you can. You can make steak burgers and you can grind that steak right on up. Oh, don't be afraid of that. As far as the fat, you better believe it. I'm going to keep the fat in this. All of it gets ground up because it all creates a beautiful flavor. Now, I'm using a really fatty chuck, and this chuck is going to make me some wonderful tasting taco meat. You can grind, like I said, any cut. So, get this grinder started and get busy. I'll start by putting some of my meat up here and getting it ready to go. These large chunks of fat, if you want to remove them, you can. I'm going to go ahead and process those. Now let's see how long it takes. This will count up. And there we go, folks. 2 minutes, 22 seconds is not very long when you consider that we just processed slightly under 3 pounds of beef into grind. That was 2 3/4 pounds of chuck. Now the fat that came out first, I'm going to turn that and mix it up into the meat. But guys, the nice thing about this is you get this elegant, gorgeous ground meat that is softer, it is more subtle, and it tastes so much better than the stuff that seems to come out of the stores in the packages. This is a far better product. And the nice thing is, you know what's in it, don't you? All right, get that fat spread around. Well, there it is. That's all there was to it, a little bit of grinding up. Now, if you're wondering, why does this guy bother grinding up all of his own meat? Well, it's really simple. Let me explain it. You don't know what you're going to get in that package. Like I said, I've been disappointed. And you don't know if they're giving you ground chuck the way it says on the label, or ground sirloin the way it says on the label. That sirloin could have just been a really lean piece of chuck that they cleaned all the extra fat off of, fed it to the machine, and changed the label on it. And you don't know any different. The real truth of the matter is when you start grinding your own meat, you do taste serious difference between one cut and another. There's also a difference in the texture of different cuts. For instance, the texture of sirloin when it is cooked up, for instance, for taco meat, versus the texture of chuck meat when it's cooked up for that exact same recipe, they taste different, they feel different, they have a different mouthfeel. And it makes a difference. When you grind your own, you know exactly what's in it. You know exactly how fresh it is. It's much better to do it this way. So please, give your own home grind a try. It's worth the trouble. You need to give it a try. It's not going to hurt anything. And thank you much for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, take a look at the channel. There's a lot of great recipes there, a lot of helpful hints, tutorials, that will really guide you into good cooking. You can be a subpar cook, and I'm going to turn you into a good cook. And if you're a good cook, I've got some recipe suggestions in there. that you're going to appreciate. Folks, again, thank you. Please subscribe, click that like button, and please have a good day. Bye-bye.